parents believe that education, one, is the best gift they can give to their kids. So they sacrifice everything.
Yeah.
More than like 70% of their income expenses for the education. And they feel, oh, I'm doing it for my kids. And then the vice versa, kids feel like, wow, like my parents working so hard, but they pay everything, like sacrifice their life, and then I'm only getting a B plus. I'm failure. I'm failure. That can be a drive for their success in short term, but in long term, their childhoods are likely to be missed. They kind of deprived of exploration. What makes me happy? How do I love myself? How do I forgive myself and other people? How do I communicate? Like what makes my heart singing, you know?
Welcome to Purposeful Empathy, a show that's dedicated to amplifying the voices of people from across the globe who understand that the world needs more empathy and are doing something about it. This season is devoted to the power of empathy in education. Meet 12 visionary leaders from the Transformative Educational Leadership Fellowship Program and learn how they are bringing meaningful change to their schools. You won't want to miss a single episode, so hit the subscribe button now. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the show. Welcome to a new episode of Purposeful Empathy. Today I'm joined by YooNa Kim, an international educator, mental health advocate, and a leader in global well-being innovation. With more than 15 years experience working across 6 continents, YooNa is dedicated to promoting holistic mental health and co-creating systems of care that center resilience, community, and belonging. She currently serves as a director of well-being and culture at citiesRISE, a global initiative dedicated to improving mental health and well-being, particularly for young people, through collective action in cities. From classrooms in Korea and Kenya to partnerships with organizations like Microsoft, YooNa brings deep cultural wisdom and clinical insight to her work. She holds a master's in clinical psychology from Columbia University, where she's now pursuing her doctorate, researching how to cultivate flourishing within organizations. A recipient of the UN CSW Humanitarian Award and a Transformative Educational Leadership Fellow, YooNa is at the forefront of shaping environments where well-being is not just a goal, but a way of life. This season, I'm exploring the power of empathy in education, and I've invited YooNa to be a guest because that's precisely what she practices and exemplifies. Welcome to the show, YooNa.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone.
It's great to have you. Thank you for making the time. I always find it so interesting because when I read a bio, it's obviously super impressive, all the work that you've done, especially 6 continents. I didn't even know that. I would love to start from almost the beginning
Mhm.
because you have such an interesting trajectory and story. So maybe you could fill in some color. Like you are doing the work that you're doing now, but like what were the twists and turns and pivots and insights that you had to bring you to where you are today?
Wow, that's a very deep, deep question that relates to my identity. Who am I? So I would like to say that like where I am today is a result of what I've experienced in the past, the events that I have experienced. For example, like when I was 11, my father passed away all of a sudden. It was not expected. And then it was a big trauma, but I didn't know how to deal with it. Born and raised in South Korea, mental health is the one that we don't talk about it. So I suffered a lot, and that's kind of expressed in a more physical way. So I had all the skin issues. I had a really, really hard time knowing that Korea is almost like a kingdom of cosmetic and plastic surgery. The amount of stress that I was getting was a lot. But at the same time, I was thinking about looking at my father's ashes in 11. That made me think about everyone dies. That's the truth. And how can I live my life more meaningful? I think that was actually one question that I've been asking through my life. And then the Mary Oliver also called it like, what are you going to do with your precious life, right? So, but I had a so when I graduate from the college, I also wanted to have a like fancy job, like oh, like I want to work in a like a multinational corporate like Microsoft, like Procter and Gamble. So I did some work there, and I realized, oh, like is that the one that I wanted to ask to entire my life? Because you spend minimum like 8 hours at work. And then you ask a question to do your job well. Like, how can I sell this beverage more? Like, how can I promote the zealot? It is important for some people, but for me, it was not really appealing. If I have to think about this question like 12 hours per day for like 30 more years, how does it shape my life? So that time, I think when I was 25, 26, I just made a bold decision. Okay, my life need a pause. Like there was some push like following the society expectation, being a good daughter, like success, being a successful woman. That's all the concept that I had at that time. But I wanted to be very true to my life. So that time there was an opportunity that I become was able to join as founding member of international schools. Actually, it's the largest boarding school in entire world. So I restart my career as an educator. I start as a like boarding staff, like mentee mentor for like students, like waking up them, like feeding them. Did you do your homework? And so I grew with the school for 8 years. And I become deputy of head of house, looking after 120 kids, and I was only one counselor looking after 900 kids in the school that time. So in that time, I just realized that, oh, and every day, like there were like five people standing in front of me doing a suicidal ideation assessment, and that um, it was a red flag. It was not okay, and that's one of the expensive school. And then knowing that they got so much attention, but amount of pressure they're getting it from family or academic pressure, whatever it is, this is like a huge treatment gap. And that's a one aspect. And as a healthcare provider, am I unique? Is it everyone experiencing it? So that's how I build the advisory program, really inviting all the integrative health aspect like yoga, mindfulness, social emotional learning, because I learned that's the key life skill that people like student needs to carry out throughout their lifetime. Other than like other subject is important, but does the school really teach them?
Mm.
Yeah. So, and I feel like if this is not just my issue, then how can I really link with the theory and practice? The system has to be changed for the students, but for the like, therapist or counselors, helping profession as well. So that's why I made a kind of bold decision, like, okay, I need to study more about it because the more I have it, the bigger container I have, I can give more. So I left South Korea like 2000 about like a 7 years, 6 years ago before the pandemic hit us. And then that's where I study spirituality, mind and body practice as a core practice. And then linking with the global mental health, how do we translate and the what we call evidence-based practice into the cultural relevant practice? Because everyone speaks different language, everyone has complete different mental perceptions about how to seek for help, how to talk about mental health. Yes, and then I start to work in a citiesRISE where we try to change the conversation of how we talk about mental health, especially young people, because they are the future, right? And then I become more interested in how do we educate, work with the age or the main stakeholder, policymakers, researchers, or educator, because we all have an agency, but we don't sometimes think that we have an agency, and we just call it oh system,
Mm.
but we are part of system. So that's how I got into like, okay, I want to study about how to really change about perceptions about this. How do you work with the different stakeholder who has a different interest?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's my background.
Oh, wow. I want to ask Yuna because I lived in Singapore where I did my master's degree and I had roommates from China. And one of them was a linguistic scholar. So she was studying the evolution of words within Chinese language, looking at like ancient times to modernity. and she was writing the an exam to get into a PhD program in the United States,
Mhm.
and it's called the GRE exam.
Mhm.
And there's three elements to this exam. One of them is math, one of them is logic or something, and one of them is English, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
And I watched her. We were
Mhm.
roommates. If I had not seen it with my own eyes, I don't think I would have believed it. But I watched her open up a dictionary this thick with like paper thin
Mhm.
pages
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Mhm.
start at the AA and move her
Yeah.
way through. She learned every single English word in that dictionary as she was preparing for the GRE. So she's like a stark example of what I witnessed
Yeah.
myself, where Asian students are working very hard to
Yeah.
get into the best schools, to get the
Mhm.
scholarships, to make their parents proud. And I don't want to single out the Asian community only as that, because I think there are
Mhm.
kids in any culture, in any part of the planet that
Mhm.
have parents that are, encouraging them and students who are working hard. But I have seen it in that community in particular. So I wonder if you could speak to just in general when students feel pressured to perform at school, how does that generally impact their mental health?
I think that's huge. And I think how does it impact their mental health? So it depending on, I think our value system, especially when kids are still growing up, they're likely to download their parents' value system.
Mm,
What they heard, what they've seen. For example, oh, I got B plus, how they react to their B plus. So
mm,
that's how they embody what's their important and learn societal system, their expectation. So, like, especially the performative society, and I think especially Asian countries, I don't want to generalize it, but based on my experience, like Asian, a lot of Asian countries are colonized by westernized country. They push themselves to build something new from the beginning because they lost everything.
yeah,
So, for example, in Korea, education was the one of the highest. Parents believe that education one is the best gift they can give to their kids. So they sacrifice everything.
yeah.
More than like 70% of their income expense is for the education.
Mm,
And they feel, oh, I'm doing it for my kids. And then the vice versa, kids feel like, wow, like my parents working so hard, but they pay everything, like sacrifice their life, and then I'm only getting a B plus.
mhm,
I'm failure.
mm,
I'm failure.
mm,
So I think you maybe like many people maybe notice that like even in America, like or like Asian, like they cry because like they only got like A. It's
mhm,
not A plus, right?
mhm, mhm.
So they're likely to determine their life value at the moment based on what performance their performances.
Yeah,
And then I think that can be a drive for their success in short term, but in long term, their childhoods are likely to be missed. They kind of deprived of exploration.
mm,
What makes me happy?
mm,
How do I love myself? How do I forgive myself and other people? How do I communicate? Like what makes my heart singing, you know? So
yeah,
I think parents are gradually noticing how important it is to create those space.
yeah,
And then social emotional learning, compassion education, there's a lot of movement that addressing this issue. But the mental health, I think based on my experience, especially in the Korean setting, we have a Chinese student and other students as well. But I think 60-70% of students who are impacted by mental health was from the academic performances.
right, right.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. You have had your own personal lived experience with trauma as a young age, and then you witnessed young people who were struggling. When you say, five suicidal ideations cases per day, that's something. That can't be
It
ignored.
is.
So I'm grateful that you were an entrepreneur within that organization and did something about it. I wonder if you had a magic wand and could reinvent education with the experience that you have that focuses on flourishing and mental health and well-being. Would you have standardized tests? Would you have grades at all? How would you envision education?
Oh my God. Am I interviewing for the Minister of Education?
Yes, I wish. I wish I could anoint that.
Like, like when I think about education when I was younger, I thought, oh, like, it's very soft. It's like about humanity, but I learned the hard way. This is one of the richest system that historically has been preserved,
Hmm.
and there's a reason for that, right? And I think go back to your question. I think we have to ask, especially we are welcoming in the era of AI.
Mm.
What do we need to learn?
Mm.
What is the pathway to become a human?
Yeah.
I think it's a very ultimate philosophical question because testing is the outcome of what we want to measure.
Yeah.
So, and I think a current education system is go back to the history when we are late, like what do you call it? Like there's a revolutions and we have to produce more labor and then also daycare it's like a current education system is education system plus daycare system, like let's be honest, like because we have to produce profit, family has to make money, and then where the kids go, and then so I don't know, to be honest, I don't know I have an answer for that because there's so many uncertainties. We don't know. I only know what I know. I
Mm.
don't know what I don't know. And I think that's humility is very important being an educator. And also a lot of I think we just need to ask a right question.
Mm.
So accepting where we are right now
Mm.
and what education system educate has served in a way that we live right now, like a lot of reduction like reductions of poverties and food security. But now we have to think about the right question.
Mm.
What kind of human being that we wanted to cultivate? Like if we can, what are the environment, what is the question, what are the skills, what are the competencies that we need to bring cultivate more?
And I think you mentioned centering humanity. I absolutely love that frame. So if education
Mhm.
help us become even more human, or like bring out the humanity in all of us, like what could that be? What could we aspire to as a civilization? I love that. I want to ask a question about your work right now. So you work at Cities Rise. So tell me about this organization and your work.
Mhm. So we are it's a global youth mental health organization, but we do the things in a different pillar. So one is more like a research component. So we try to we try to explore innovative way to talk to the research. So one portion of key portion is human flourishing. So I've been doing research and interviewing people in South Asia and Africa how they define human flourish, because the conceptualization is completely different from what we see in the literature right now. The huge gap. So that's one research component.
Okay, so
And
pause there because that's so interesting. Okay, I promise we'll come back to the
okay,
second part,
okay.
but what are you learning? How does human flourishing? So maybe we'll start at ground zero. How do we define human flourishing? And what are you noticing about Africa and Asia, these two big continents full of diversity within them?
Oh, that's a big question. So I was writing on the final report about all about this. So the one thing is emerging it's such a nascent field that invite all different disciplinary,
Mm.
right? Humanity, human development, psychology, psychiatry, like anthropology,
Neuroscience.
history, religions, like neuroscience and everything.
Mm.
So that lead us to not landing on an easy definition because how we conceptualize human is so different. Your definition of flourishing, my definition of flourishing is so different. And
Mm.
if you look at all the different continent, it's so different. And also what it means is that second thing is we are in academia, we are missing capturing the indigenous wisdom and historical traditions.
Mm.
So for example, let's compare the South Asia and Africa. South Asia, a lot of text is preserved because of text, right? Based like Pandita, like all the classics are there, and there's a lot of research about like really interpreting their text. The whole concepts about related to the human flourishing, like Dharma, Dukkha, but there has been a concept like that, but it was not linked with the human flourishing because human flourishing itself is a Western English term
Hmm.
and that invite everyone. So what we are doing is actually socializing human flourishing terminology with other people, so making a link.
I see.
And then Africa, so most of their traditions are oral. So
Mhm.
they have no written language. Or so it leads up to in academia, nothing. It was
Mm.
not able to capture it unless so there's a lot of qualitative study interviewing people,
Mm.
but as you know, the history of all the like, paradigm and what they're able to capture is how does Christianity and other religion come integrate and co-live with other like healing system or tribe history. So I think there's a second one is like there's a huge gap, but also very exciting opportunity
Mm.
to socialize human flourishing concept, bringing more indigenous wisdom and then culture and the spiritual tradition to the surface.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Asian continent, how do they define? You were talking more like the Confucianist.
Yeah, we have like Confucianist, Buddhism, Taoism. So also it's kind of because like people move. One thing that interesting thing I found out is there's a diaspora trend because
Mm.
who people who used to live in England, Europe, who used to lead the whole the research, right? They moved to Africa, they moved to India, and they live there.
Mm.
And the people, a lot of people who are like highly educated from the like global south, they got a degree in America,
Yeah.
Canada, and they live there and
Mm.
they study about their back home country. So
Mm.
there's a very interesting like integration or weaving process,
Mm.
how we evolve the field of human flourishing.
Mm.
Um, and then for when it comes to the Asia, I think I can share more about like Confucianism, the hierarchical process, and then harmony, like valuing other people more than myself, because we see the harmony is the most important value that we have to keep,
Yeah.
or collectivism. So that's another trend. Yeah.
Well, I can imagine how you felt that on an embodied level coming to the United States, which really champions the individual, cowboy. And it's certainly playing out now in politics, this whole idea of, US exceptionalism and we can do it, we don't need anybody else stuff. Anyways, but we won't get into the politics today. You were saying about Cities Rise, there's the research component, and then I distracted you. And now, what was the second element?
Yeah, so the second element is actual practice building or intervention with the schools.
Mm.
So what we are really trying to do is how do we amplify the voice of young people?
Mm.
Because a lot of system or education system or policies were top down.
Hmm.
So what they think is right might not be true to the young people who are actually experiencing it. So what we do is the co-creation part is so important. So, like for example, one project we are doing with the help of European Union is Kenya, India, South Africa, and Sweden. There are four sites, and then of course the education systems are different. But what we are doing is we are trying to build a kind of core principles and template. We call it WIRE framework,
Hmm.
and what there's a like core content using a gratitude, kind, and hope. So
Oh,
gratitude as a way, it's temperate concept. Gratitude as a way to looking back our life and
uh-huh.
make a meaning.
Yeah,
We cannot change the past, but we can change the way we think about the past, right?
sure.
And the present, the kindness, how do we make awareness of what I need right now and what other people need? And how
Oh,
do you make an active actions?
yeah.
Kindness, living in
Kindness
this.
is the verb. Yeah.
Yes. And then for the future, as how do we build
Oh,
optimistic future, knowing that we have an agency. It's like a way power and willpower. I know how to get there, and I know I can do this.
oh, I love this.
Yeah,
Love
so we are
this.
using this gratitude kindness. So it was idea was started with the Dan Thomas Loy from Columbia University, director of spiritually mind and body practice, And we worked with Dr. Ola, who actually become a Dharma teachers in Thailand. So we have a like really amazing thought leaders in this field. And then what we are doing is we have this kind of moldable content, and we are bringing it to India, and they invite teacher, administrator, and student and parent. What do you think about this?
Right.
What do you mean? In your culture, in your community, what do you mean to be like like to be grateful? What does it mean to be like hopeful?
Mm.
So we co-create the intervention together. So there's a whole co-creation workshop, several workshop, and then as a result we build a customized intervention manual for each countries. And then that manual has a three component. One is classroom intervention. So basically we teach like those three elements. And then second was teacher well-being. We invite teacher in advance before they teach classroom
Mm.
because we feel it's so important to feel how does it need to be nurtured, and then you can teach it, right? If
Yeah.
you don't know how does it feel like to be connected, how does it feel like to be well, how can you?
Oh, so there's a benefit to the teachers too,
Yeah,
because
so teacher first and then classroom intervention, and then third part is we called it together action board.
mm,
So we invite teacher, parents and student together. So it's like together how do we build happier and more healthier school. So we provide some template like with example like a kind of together action board menu example.
mm,
But what does it work for you? Like, do you have any student assembly meeting, or do you have any work? So they can be creative as much as possible because they do it together.
yeah.
So we are in charge of training those elements, but also ensure the quality is maintained. So that's one of our research component, but also building interventions.
Sweet. Well, we're going to have that in the show notes, the website, so people can check out the resources on the website. That's amazing. I love that work. Oh, that must be that's going to be really inspiring and exciting to see those take
Mhm.
root in certain contexts. I wonder if I could come back to you personally, Yuna, about any moments in your life. I think you may have something to say about what it means to be seen and how that has shaped your leadership. I wonder if there are any memories or moments in your life, because I know belonging matters to you, and I know that you are a culturally adaptive person and you've worked on 6 continents, which is quite extraordinary. So yeah, what comes to mind?
I think there's maybe two example. One is so I remember when I decided to become a yoga teacher, it's a way to just introduce mental health and also help my own health. There was a one workshops about like self-affirmation, and what they invite me to do is just think about what is not true to you, actually. And then that time I don't like I have gone through all the like atopic disease. I was like I hate myself. I
Mm,
hated my body, and there was a like one of the worst uh how to the bottom of my life that time. So I said, "Oh, I don't like my skin, and I don't like my life. I don't like like I don't think I'm beautiful."
mm,
So what they helped me to do is actually shift it.
mm,
So I like my skin, I like my body, I am beautiful, I love my life. Like
mm,
four. I
mm,
feel really uncomfortable, right? But like because that's something I don't really truly believe in. So what they did, what they facilitated is there was a Sangha group. So like we were in a group of like 43 people for the yoga training, and then there's like 5 people in my group. And then they actually put their hands on my back,
mm,
and then they said it out loud to me like 10 times.
mm,
And then I was like, I think I always wanted to be seen that way, but like when we are going through hard time, we don't actually see that, right? But I think this powerful affirmation, like verbally, and then people actually like touching here,
mm,
and then we are here for you. And then they say, I got your back. I think that was a very powerful moment. Oh yeah, maybe I wanted to be seen that way. Maybe that's me, but I just don't believe it because on surface level, it's like a pain is actually it's unavoidable, but pain deceive the value, the value that we can see. So I think that was a one moment, and actually I that was a very powerful. So I when I run stuff because I initiate running body image workshop and sex education or like well-being for the entire school, and actually I shifted kind of inspired by the idea and put the same thing for the kids, and like I think it was like 70 kids were there and like 20 people just cried, and then because they did the same thing because everyone's going through some their own war, whatever it is, but when they shifted that and then really heard from other people that they don't really believe it, but they could be. It's true. And then it was a very good example of how I can really transform my mind, but
Mm.
also even though I didn't believe it truly that moment that I when I repeated, oh like, yeah, I was seen. Yeah.
And you got emotional, and I was touched by seeing how much that experience meant to you. So I want to break away from the conversation with you to actually ask you, practically speaking, how to do this, because I can imagine
Yeah.
applying it within organizational workshops, but also in classrooms, and anybody who's listening might want to do this as well. So you were invited to write down some sentences about how hard you are on yourself, right? I don't like my skin, I don't like my body, I'm not beautiful, right? You wrote those sentences
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the next step was now reverse those sentences. I
Yeah.
am beautiful, I have wonderful skin, I have a beautiful body.
Mm.
And then those were the sentences that other people behind you read to you, holding your
Yeah.
shoulders.
Yeah.
And
And
then
they make a circle. They
they
make
make
a
a circle.
circle.
And
Yeah.
so one person is saying it behind you, or all of them are saying it at the same
All of like so basically it's in rotation. Everyone goes through the same process. So
time.
in
Wow.
rotation, it's my turn and I say it's like it's flexed in a very gentle and subtle way. Everything is under the permission and consent. Even like can I touch your can I hold
Yes.
your hand? Yeah. Very gentle because it's because a lot of vulnerability.
Vulnerability for sure.
Yeah, so we create a safe space first. And then like in on that time, people already live like 1 month together in like
Uh,
a yoga retreat. So they trust each other. They know the relationship is very like trustworthy. And then so basically I'm standing here and like five people like are circling around me.
mm,
Someone holding my hand, someone put their hands on their back
mm,
or like whatever I feel supported,
mm.
and they give the space for me to decide however I wanted to be heard
Oh,
and
wow.
seen. And
So
then
you,
they decided collectively, Yuna, you are beautiful. Yuna, you are worthy.
wow.
Yuna, your skin is beautiful. Like it's like a and everyone has their own word. Everyone. And that's like a so deep and vulnerable. But I think uh people it takes courage even naming what I feel really uncomfortable in my life,
Yes. Yes, it,
right?
yes.
Because people feel very unsafe to say it. Even the confrontation, it's very hard because like you're like really seeing your reality, what you think is real. Yeah.
Wow. I can imagine how powerful that is. Especially if you feel like you're all alone with some of these thoughts, and then you realize how much we share in common in terms of our own anxieties,
Yeah.
insecurities, the negative self-talk, and then we just uplift each other. Wow, that's just I want to pivot to empathy. We're a
Yeah.
podcast about empathy. So I'd love to know what role empathy plays in flourishing and well-being and mental health. And I'll just add a second layer to that. Given you have, crossed the globe and you have so much intercultural competency, I wonder if you could speak to empathy within different cultural contexts, if
Yeah.
you've noticed anything that's different or something you'd like to uplift.
Yeah. Sure. I will start with just Korean context. So in Korea, like So I don't know, you have a Korean friend, but they might ask you about, oh, have you eaten? What
Mm,
did you eat? Like it's more like a greeting way.
mm,
Like hi and how hi Anika, and then like, oh, have you eaten? Like so like so that's the kind of snapshot of the Korean people checking each other. How are you okay? I
mm,
care about you. I want you to be nourished,
mm,
like mentally, physically, and I'm care for you. Like
mm,
so for me, like asking about, and we call it like 밥 먹었어? Like, oh, like hi, like 밥 먹었어? Like was like the second thing that you say, like whenever you meet someone. And I heard that this is like this empathy, this part is deeply shaped by our history. Like after we colonized by Japanese and war, poverty, and the rebuilding process for generations, like surviving depended on the collective.
mm,
And then like people, and especially after the Korean War, people didn't have much to give, like share emotionally and materially. And then they always find a way to carry each other, like through the simple acts, like even sharing a rice, or like just quietly checking in, or like even like there was even saying that you even share the one piece of bean with other people, even though it's small, you can always share.
mm,
So I think that's the one of the uh um manifest that happen in Korea, like empathy, like are you okay? I care about you, and then people always try to like feed you like the food is such a big themes in Korea, so like they feed you up till like you cannot even swallow anymore. So
mm,
I think it's like every culture has a different gestures and tone or like actions of express their empathy.
mm,
And then the other way, one example I can think of is I had an interview with Kenyan one of the leaders in Kenyan organization, and they work with the tribe called the Nobuishu. So it's kind of similar to Ubuntu, but what they care about is it's like it's based on interconnectiveness.
mm,
So this Nobuishu tribe actually move around when the resource is gone, they move, and then they leave and they move. And then few years ago, there's a huge scarce of resource, and then people couldn't even leave. And there's a one person's like, and then the other person is the other tribe. They actually just give all the livestock to them, like without even asking. So I was like, why?
mm,
Why? And then they said, oh, you are a father. Help me when I starve.
mm,
So like basically like this there's a continuity of past, present, and future. There's no transaction. Like it's not transaction. It's like a more like an invisible like a belief that whatever I do is helping my descendant
mm,
and my ancestors watching me.
mm,
So it's a different way of looking at the empathy, because empathy can be interpreted in different ways in different culture. But when I heard about that story, like it's everything is interconnected vertically and horizontally. So um so it's also it's if the Korean culture is about the food, this culture is about actually sharing about the resource as well.
mm,
It's not about expanding my heart or consciousness, but also actually about like taking an action and help.
mm.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I should look deeper into all the cultural expressions of
Mm.
empathy. I think that's really beautiful. And it makes sense because I know that there is some research that shows wherever there's big income gaps, like there's, a
Mm.
big gap between the rich and the poor, there tends to be less empathy in that culture than in cultures where people share the same experience. And it doesn't matter what scale of the economics they're at, because they're, going through the same experience collectively. So I think, sharing the bean is a really beautiful metaphor for that. Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's also like when we do conceptualize empathy, and I think it's go back to the question how they defined their own success and happiness. I think it's kind of manifested.
Mm, mm,
Yeah. because yeah, for them, the continuity of ancestor descendants is important. So that's manifested in empathy, empathetic actions.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
in Korea, like collectivism is so important. Making, even though I start a little bit sharing other people so they can be also nourished is important. So that manifests in the empathetic action as well. Yeah.
Well, you'll find this interesting. My PhD was entitled A Pedagogy of Empathic Action.
I should
So
read it.
you have to
Yeah.
do a little bit more research. We'll have to talk offline.
Yeah.
I also get asked the question a lot, if I work with, let's say, healthcare professionals or even teachers or people who are in the service provision that are regularly extending empathy, that there's a danger that you cross a threshold into empathy fatigue or compassion fatigue. So I wonder if you could speak to any dangers of empathy that you see when it comes to mental health and well-being and flourishing, anything around accountability or around, reaching limits. What's the cautionary tale that we also have to pay attention to?
Um, I think I'm still practicing this, but what comes to my mind is being nice and being kind.
Mm,
Differentiation between those things, and people often think it's same
mm,
in a workplace. But I think what is difference is that when I was asked two questions about like what is the who was most kindest person in your life and what the quality they have actually was setting a very clear boundary and the sector expectation.
mm,
So because like I think they're including myself, I'm very empathetic. I just like automatically tune to others' need and try to serve in a way that's helping them, very subtle way. They don't even know.
mm,
For me, that's kind of my cultural value that I'm carrying in my life. But that makes me like that automatically train myself. Where's my needs? Where's my like how do I honor myself? Because I was training myself, that way for many, many years. So I think for me, and for the go back to your question, empathy and accountability, I think it's really important to know the limits
mm.
and also it's like almost like a container. You are like this container and that you can give this much. But if you don't invest the time and energy to solidify and look after the container, it will collapse
Yeah.
and it will spill all over the place.
Mm,
And then you lose yourself. And then that will impact the people that you love.
mm,
So I think knowing the limit is very important, but also kindly and but also gracefully and affirming way communicate with other people why I'm doing this in this way, so they can also like we call it with their expectations. Yeah.
mm. I have two more questions if you'll
Yeah.
indulge. One of them is, so the series is about the role of empathy in education. But your expertise is, how do we cultivate flourishing and mental health, like good quality mental health? So I wonder what role empathy plays in that space specifically within education.
Yeah, how does empathy can play in education setting?
Hmm.
Um,
In order to nurture and uplift
yeah,
mental
yeah,
health, yeah, specifically.
yeah. I think there's a two aspect. And one is in order to be empathetic, we have to ensure that we have a space for that.
Mm,
We have to be really, really intentional to make this space because we are leaning toward to do things rather than being some being and becoming and including myself, like constantly practicing this. And then when we are busy with the things, we are likely to miss the moment to be being and becoming for other people.
mm,
And then so I think the first thing is really like be intentional to create a space, like whatever that is easier for you. It can be a meditation, it can be a just stillness,
mm,
or it can be just walking or being in the nature, whatever it is. And then you have some space for other people and for yourself.
mm,
And then when you um meet someone or when you encounter some situation, I think you can be more intentional to create a space for that people as well. Because if you don't have a space, you don't even have awareness.
It's so interesting because there's Jamil Zaki, a researcher in Stanford who's done research on just the belief that we
Mhm.
can become more empathic actually changes our behavior. So being intentional about creating space for that is like leaning into the fact that we can become more empathic, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a basic assumption. Yeah, so thank you for naming that. That basic assumption is we can be more empathetic, we can nurture ourselves and other people like becoming that way. And that if the first part about how do we create ourselves can be also systematically deployed. In the school start, if the school class start, like just like start with the 2 minutes of silence, just calming themselves, like checking with my body, my heart, and my head. Like let's imagine that that's happening every classroom with the teachers and with the students, and that can be a way of you can do it at school systematically.
Mm.
Some people might not like it. Why do we like with it? Like if I was student, I wouldn't like it. Oh, it's so boring. Why do we do it? But like we are when we repeat it, repetition is very important and it become part of it, become a ritual, right? So I think there is a way we can embed it those very subtle way in a very low key in every classroom, even in a assembly or teachers faculty meeting
Yeah.
or parents meeting, like a simple check-in or just like caring about just one sound together.
And it seems almost so obvious because we know that if we're feeling stressed in
Mhm.
any way, we
Mhm.
don't have the same cognitive functions and capabilities. But when we're using our parasympathetic nervous system, when we're feeling calm, all of a sudden problem solving opportunities. We see things more, we're able to hold complexity. We don't go into right and wrong and
No,
black and
no, yeah,
white. We can see
yeah,
nuance and
yeah,
listen to each other differently as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So for example, I think there was actually studies about like anxious brain and the curious brain.
Hmm.
So imagine that you are anxious, you have an anxious brain right now, and then you are going to only see me, like, oh, why Yuna's eye is like that? Oh, her lips color is not good. Like you are likely to focus, stress brain are likely to focus on the detail of the problem.
Oh, wow.
And then the curious brain, like the opposite, they start to see, oh, Yuna has that like blind, it has a stripe, like a black and white. Oh, she's sitting in a chair, like a gray color. So
Hmm.
that's a space.
Hmm.
So your attention to the problem. So depending on your stress level, like you said, like parasympathetic system, like your view and perception can completely change.
Right.
And that's why even social emotion learning is, I think it's getting more popularity, like because basically it's believed that when we are emotionally hijacked, we can function, people can perform.
Right.
So how do we make the space?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can't believe we're at the end of our conversation. I want to thank you for your time, but I always
Yeah.
end these dialogues, these deep dives, by asking the same question. So if you would indulge, I would greatly appreciate. If you could think of a time in your life you
Mhm.
were on the receiving end of empathy and what that meant
Mhm.
for you.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, I'm so happy that I was able to share this story. So it's very recent. So my husband and I live in New York City. We are like newly married couple, and unfortunately, like my husband has developed a very acute autoimmune disease that impact his mobility in like 2 weeks. So we have to be in the hospital, and he's still in a recovery journey. But that meant is that we have a very energetic dog named Cody, and then he has to have a space because we were in hospital like more than like a month. So when we know that he has to go to ER and that might takes longer than we think, to stay in hospital, we drop him off in a daycare where is his one of his favorite place, a lot of friends and friendly like host. So, and then because of our hospital situation, we didn't even know what his diagnosis. It was full of uncertainty, and then we ended up staying there longer than we thought. And then we couldn't, because my husband lose his mobile little fingers and everything. He couldn't even message to daycare about like dog, like so he was a kind of like disappeared for 1 month, but they never message us. Like they just keep sending us how Cody is doing. Like don't worry about it. Like and then so at that time, like now when we know like what situation, like we have to pay them, right? We have to pay. So I told, yeah, Evan, we have to pay. Like how much is it? Like so like it was not a like really like cheap money, but we are very grateful for that. Our Cody was safe. He was enjoying, his life there. So I bring all the like it was I think a 3,500 like dollars in cash. So I wanted to really give that money to the daycare because they've been looking after Cody so well, and I wrote a handwritten letter. And then so it was actually after the one call that I had with the tel, and there was night like 9 o'clock, 9:30. I went to the Chinatown where the daycare located, and then they just call me Yuna, like come in, and then there was all the dogs are there, and I gave like this. Thank you so much for looking after the Cody, and then we are sorry that we are not able to really communicate properly, like, but we are like with the letters and money, and then I explained what happened to him, and then basically like what she said is it like Yuna, like don't worry about it, like Cody's our family too. We'll take care of him until your husband recovers. You just focus on getting him well. And like I said, like, no, like I insist, like this is your business, like this is your income. And then that's not a really luxurious like daycare that they don't do it for like money. And then like and she wouldn't accept any payment. And then she actually shared that her daughter is like battling with the leukemia, and she said like I know how it feels like to care someone who's sick, and you are not alone. And then that moment, like her choice to connect and then really stand with me and us and just like do what she can do. I was like, what are you talking about? This is your living, this is your business. Like I just felt like, in this New York City, like I've never heard about this story. So like it was actually the transformative moment for me to think about redefining about empathy. So it was not about how much money you have. It's not about how, yeah, it was about like think about other people's this perspective and think about how what you can do. So that was one of the powerful moment, and I don't think I will ever forget about the story. And then he's still there with the daycare. Like I think it's almost like a 3 month because my husband is still in recovery with his mobility. And it was even more special because it happened right around the anniversary of my father's passing, and even many ways, and I feel like he's watching over us with this like act of the grace. And later I knew that her daughter who was fighting with leukemia, she also went to the same hospital where my husband got treated. And also she was like a clinical social worker background. And then she actually, even when she finished her new chemotherapy, she called us and asked, oh, how are you doing? How's Evan doing? And like she also she gave me advice of how to like become a good caretaker, and then how I can support better him, but also making sure I have a space for myself. So yeah, so it become that was one of the story that I never want to forget, and I always think about her and her family, like what does it mean to be empathetic, like how do I become a better person, and when I receive this kindness, how can I give this back to other people? I think that's become my motivation, to be a better person. Yeah, the thinking about this story.
So many layers to that story. I'm sure everybody who's watching
Yeah.
and listening has also felt moved. And I think ending on your question, maybe extending it as an invitation. What can we do today to be a more empathic person? And how could the world change if we all leaned into that question genuinely?
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful that your husband is doing better. I'm so grateful Cody has a fun place to go with his energy. I'm so grateful you had that exchange with that woman and that your dad is speaking to you through her.
Thank you.
Thank you, YooNa, for all the important work you do and sharing an hour with me.
Yeah.
And want to thank everybody who's been watching and listening. And we'll see you next time at Purposeful Empathy. If you know someone who would benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Post the link to your socials and hit the subscribe button now. The world needs more empathy, and you have an important role to play.